Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Assemblywoman Megan Dahle, representing the 1st Assembly District, which encompasses the northeastern corner of our great state, 9 counties, and 25,000 square miles. I hope everyone who's watching are well and safe. I know it's been hard to stay positive during these uncertain times, but that is why we wanted to highlight the great work that's happening throughout the district. And we're talking with individuals and groups who are helping out members of our community. Today, we are joined by Chief Alex Gammelgard from the Grass Valley Police Department. Hello. So thankful that you were able to join us today. Alex has been a member of the Grass Valley Police Department for over 16 years. He is a graduate of Nevada Union High School and holds a Bachelor's of Business Administration degree from Gonzaga University. He has worked previously as a reserve officer in Spokane, Washington, prior to joining the GVPD. Alex grew up in Nevada County and has a passion for ensuring our quality of life and the character of our community for generations to come. The Grass Valley Police Department is a full-service community policing organization with 24 sworn officers, 8 reserve officers, and 12 volunteers who provide police services for the city. There are also 2 animal control officers, as well as several clerical and administrative support positions. The Grass Valley Police Department places an emphasis on community-oriented policing by establishing relationships with residents, merchants, and our department. We are positioned to assist our individual police-related needs. Alex is here to answer important questions for us today during this pandemic, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you again for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and I guess this is sort of, many of us are getting used to this video conferencing thing, but looks like you have a beautiful spot to be, and I'm in my office, and I look forward to the conversation with you as well.
Yeah, all this Zoom meeting and a few technical difficulties here and there, but it is cool that we can still connect from a distance, and I'm very thankful to be able to do that throughout this. We're back in session now in Sacramento, but previously we were home, and being able to stay connected to constituents through this technology has been really amazing. So moving into our questions, how's everything going in Grass Valley? How's the department handling all the new normal?
Yeah, you know, when this thing first started coming our way, I think that like many police agencies, we saw it coming, and then all of a sudden it was upon us. And so we've made a lot of changes and had to do a lot of things here in our police department. And then obviously it's had tremendous impacts in our community and state and country and world for that matter. And so, yeah, it's definitely, you know, things are going, considering what we have going on. They're not going like they were a month ago. And I don't think that in the future they're going to be going, you know, like they were in the past. I think that we're now starting to move into this point where as a town, as a community, as organizations doing whatever we do within in our communities, we're starting to look at what does the future hold and trying to do some future forecasting and read the tea leaves, so to speak, of what we see from our governor and from our state legislative bodies, our local bodies, our health officers. You know, there's so many moving parts out there that we do see a lot of this kind of planning and logistics planning around what does the future look like and trying to create something that's healthy but also vibrant from a community standpoint, from an organization standpoint. How do we keep our people safe, motivated, and also feeling connected to their work as we've sort of moved into this more disconnected environment because of what we have going on.
Yeah, it is very odd to not have that community relation like we used to have, where we could, you know, be with one another. We miss people. I think mostly at this point it's been so long that in general when I see people now, they're very excited to see you for the first time in a month or whatever it's been. So what is the role that the Grass Valley Department is playing in the stay-at-home orders from the governor?
You know, we've taken, I think, and you've seen this up and down the state, a very educational role, and also a role of community-oriented connectionness to those people who are home. We're trying to reiterate the message around the safety of staying at home and not congregating. From a business standpoint, we've assigned an officer solely to that kind of interfacing. It worked out well that the person we picked is good for the role. He was actually working as our school resource officer, but when the schools went out of session and went more to a distance learning model, his traditional role as a school resource officer really changed. And so luckily for us, we were able to really reallocate that resource and made him more of our business liaison officer and health order liaison officer. So that's what he's been doing, and that's how we're really addressing it. We really wanted to have a consistent voice, so we thought assigning a single person to that would really help, because he can help get direction from whether it's my office, our administration, our supervisors, our city, our health orders, those kind of things, but then feed it back to the individuals that are asking the questions in a real consistent manner. So Officer Zach LaFerriere is doing that for us. He's doing a wonderful job, and I've heard a lot of great feedback. But it's definitely a really interesting dynamic too, though, because we're, as a result of that, we've really pitted livelihood against community safety, and some of the safety nets that were put into place at the federal and state levels had to be done in a hasty fashion. So we're hearing mixed reviews about how those have really trickled down to the individual end user as far as access to certain programs and things like that. So it's definitely been it's been difficult playing that role of sort of setting between free enterprise and somebody's livelihood and what we're being asked to do as a society around public health and public safety.
So when the governor, makes announcements, like for instance that phase 2 is going to start to come out, so is your officer taking direct calls from business owners? Is he doing any outreach as far as like going to their businesses? Are you checking on businesses or anything like that right now?
Yeah, so there's a couple things we're doing. To answer your first part of the question, the phase 2 component that just was announced recently by Governor Newsom, what we find too is that from the time of announcement and sort of the general framework down to the applicability of how does it apply to this business or that business, there's definitely a need to help vet that out. So actually just before your call today, we had a stakeholder business call with elected officials, our city manager, myself, and a number of local businesses from different subsets, from small retail to larger retail to shopping center management, gyms, restaurants, a number of different subsets to kind of say, okay, so as we start moving more towards a reopening, what are some of those considerations and how can the city help provide some framework and guidelines and help in that future forecasting of what the future might look like. At an individual level, yes, our officer is out and we'll try to educate people, but what we find is that sometimes, whether it's through news media or whether it's through just interpretation, if you've ever played the messenger game as a kid, it starts one way and sort of ends another. There's that component of, I think on the streets, there's this feeling and some questions. I know some business owners have said, hey, are we opening on Friday? I mean, all the news reports say that California's opening on Friday. And I think the first and foremost, the context is opening in the future, even if it wasn't a wide open opening, isn't going to look like it looked on March 1st. But probably more importantly is, although that's what some people might be interpreting, that's not at all what is being laid out there from a framework standpoint. So trying to help navigate that, we really see ourselves in just trying to help educate business owners about what that might look like for them.
Yeah, that's very helpful, because it is confusing. You hear one thing on the news and then the actual, like you said, the framework of how this is going to work and how you're going to be able to, go back to some kind of businesses. Business as usual isn't going to look the same. So what are you hearing is the most concerning matter for your community right now? Do you have one thing that comes up more than anything else?
Well, I think there's really two. And again, it's kind of that conflicting component. One thing is that Nevada County in general is a very older county from a demographic standpoint. So nearly 1/3 of our population is, over 60 or 65 years old. And as we know, that's a vulnerable population that we want to really try to keep from being in a position of contracting this virus. On the flip side, though, we're also a rural community that relies very much on small business for the vibrancy and long-term sustainability of our community. So it's important that we find the balance to protect the vulnerable population and also give those folks access to services and enterprise and things like that, but also create a framework and a safe reopening plan that allows businesses to come back online in a way that's safe. And so I think to some degree that's really what we're seeing all over, but we have a demographic here that really paints that picture. And so that's difficult because you have some people that say nothing should open because we want to make sure that everybody stays safe. But on the flip side, I think really what we need to do is work towards, rather than having a litmus test of what's essential, instead start shifting towards a model of duration of contact and proximity of individuals related to the transmission of the disease. And then also build in some programs and policies around allowing that vulnerable population to access services maybe in a way that we haven't done before, so that we can provide a service as a community to everybody.
Right, that's good. So what other agencies are you working with right now? Everyone?
Oh, yeah, a lot, but we're obviously working with the business community. We're working with our county government, with our other police departments. We've stood up different task forces within Nevada County that align with the state OES task forces. I know for me personally, I'm sitting on the Law Fire Task Force and then also on the Housing Task Force. So we're working with our nonprofit partners on the housing side and the service delivery. And then of course, on the government side, everybody from fire protection districts to other law enforcement agencies, other government entities and school districts and things like that as we find our way forward.
So is Grass Valley experiencing anything different than you're hearing across the state from other police chiefs or law enforcement?
Yeah, and I think that that's what's important to recognize. Just like at the federal to state level, it's been left to state governors to help establish ways forward in their respective states. Municipalities and local entities really should be left within some framework to find a way forward, because what you see in the city of Grass Valley is very different than what you see in the town of Truckee, both within the county of Nevada, but it's also significantly different than what you see in, say, Huntington Beach, right? And we know that they've found themselves in the news recently. Population density and just general demographics and business models and service delivery models and healthcare surge capacity are all things that need to be considered. And in a state as large and as diverse as the state of California, and then a geographical region as large and diverse as Assembly District 1, for example, there is a need to do things differently in different areas, with the underpinnings of those plans being around health and safety, but also the vitality and the ability to continue on as a community in the future, because it's not sustainable to just keep people locked inside their homes for a long period of time.
No, and as we move into warmer weather, it's going to, myself included, it's harder and harder to stay in when it's nice outside.
Yeah, and we've seen a measurable impact in the police work side of things as it relates to people's mental well-being. I mean, we are going to calls where people are distraught, and we've seen a measurable impact on how this is affecting people. And I'm very concerned about the long-term ability for something like this to continue, taking aside the business and everything else. But just from a public health perspective, public mental health is also something that should be considered related to the physical health.
That was one of my questions. Have you seen an increase in calls, like mental health calls, versus another concern I have is, healthy families, healthy communities during these times are having a hard time. All being, our family of 5, we have our sons are home from college, and our 5-year, our daughter who's in 5th grade's homeschool, doing her homeschool. It increases tension within the home. So in unhealthy circumstances, is that upping, the calls for family calls as well? I've been concerned about that. I've been concerned about the children that, CPS or don't have eyes on every day because they don't go to school now. So what does that look like?
Yeah, just recently, our district attorney in Nevada County put out a kind of a joint press release with the different police and sheriff's office logos, and provided some information because we are concerned about the fact that if there's child abuse or other types of abuse happening within a home, the avenues for reporting have been severely limited by the stay-at-home component of this. I have not run statistics recently. It's definitely something that our analysts will be looking at because, and it should be done more at a geographical level, just because an agency our size, the sample set's relatively small to understand the significance. But it's anecdotally, in talking to some officers working specifically night shifts, they've mentioned that there are regular calls for service related like traffic accidents and downtown disturbances and stuff like that have really decreased, which would make sense. But that there are other calls for service related to interpersonal relationships and things like that have increased.
It's unfortunate because I worry about that population of the little people, the kids out there, and in situations, and when stress is high, stress is high right now for everyone, mental well-being. And so for your officers, what safety measures have you taken for your department has implemented? Because I know in the beginning, I was on a call not shortly after we came home with Horak, I believe, and they were talking about the fact that for PPEs for law enforcement were short, that they needed more personal, protective gear. So have you been able to get enough equipment for your officers?
Yeah, we were pretty fortunate that early on, one of the things we try to do here a lot is strategize around what does the future hold, from a number of things. So when we started seeing this sort of start overseas and then move into Santa Clara and the Eastern Seaboard, we definitely made some strategic moves early to get our hands on a little bit of PPE, and we've been fortunate to not have to burn through a lot of it. If we had a major increase in our region, I'm not sure where we would sit. So that's, flattening the curve has helped us in that regard. From a personal protective equipment, that's where we stand from more of a policy and guidance standpoint. We also implemented a 3-stage prevention and preparedness plan early on. And so at one point we were in a level 3, which is our highest. And basically we were doing these kinds. So traditionally in law enforcement, every morning or every evening at a shift change, we do what's either called a lineup or a briefing. And so one shift passes along the knowledge from the previous shift. And those used to be done in person. We moved to a totally online platform for that for a while, and we're still doing that distancing because, as we know, someone could be asymptomatic and spread it their entire shift. And if we lose 3 or 4 people at the Grass Valley Police Department, it's going to be pretty devastating. How do we staff the street? So we've done that, and then we implemented basically you stay in your own vehicle for your duration of your shift, meaning you take it home rather than parking it and letting the next person come in. So we limited the number of vehicle changeouts to 1 a week instead of 7 or more a week. We had our hands on good amounts of disinfectant, so we have policies and procedures around high-touch surfaces and cleaning of tables and door handles and paper handling of reports and how they're going to sit so that they're not potentially transmitting to our clerical staff, and limited our lobby to be through an intercom rather than face-to-face, and our mail carriers and all kinds of things that we did. And I think to some degree, some of those things will stay. It's interesting. Some of the things that forever were difficult to make happen, like online reporting up to the courts and the district attorney and other places, for example, that were always touted as difficult to pull off. So someday we'll get there. I think there's some certain good that has come out of this that has forced our hand to make changes. And so I don't think we're going to be going back in a lot of those areas.
Yeah, you've seen that a lot. We're able to streamline, even with the kids staying home from school, Zoom. I mean, if you told me a month ago that I was going to start doing all my meetings through Zoom, I wouldn't have been it. But I actually think I enjoy it. I feel like you can stay connected, and I think that's something we'll probably continue to do, because if you Zoom with someone, 25,000 square miles, I can speak to different groups of people a lot easier. So
Yeah.
I think there are things that will definitely good things that we'll carry through on the other side of this as well. So if you could communicate a message to Grass Valley community right now from your department, what would you say to them?
The first thing I would say is that we're here to serve our community, and we haven't reduced that level of service in any way as a result of this. We've offered up a business portal on our webpage for any businesses that were closed, and if anybody wants to add to that, they can go on our webpage and make a business request. We're making sure that we're handling those in the wee hours of the morning when nobody is out. We're still checking people's businesses and doing that. But I think my message is broader than just from the police department, and it's more of a community message that I've seen our community go through a number of concerning times in the past, whether it's the 49er fire or 9/11 or difficult, tragic deaths in our community. And this probably is the most far-reaching, everybody's affected issue that we've had, but we've always been able to pull through and be resilient. And I think we're uniquely situated here with the community members we have that care so deeply about our community, and with the nonprofits and businesses and leaders that will not settle for anything but a better Nevada County when we come out of this. And so my message is we're in this together, and we will come out as a stronger, more cohesive, and it might not look the same that it looked in the past, but I think it's going to be just as resilient and a place that is special to all of us, and it will continue as that. So as long as that's what our vision is moving forward, that's what it will be as we come out of this. And so I look forward to that, and I know many of us can't wait for that day, and we're here to try and help move that ball down the court so that we can get there and look back on this rather than continue to be in the moment that we're in.
Good. I look forward to getting to see you again in person and working together as well to get us back on the other side. Now that the Assembly has reconvened, is there anything that you would like me to share with my colleagues or advocate for Grass Valley and our rural communities specifically? I'm always advocating the one size does not fit all, which we were just speaking about, Huntington Beach, LA, San Francisco, in our rural communities, we don't look like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I would really ask, is that all the rural district members and Senate members would say, hey, part of what makes Grass Valley, or makes the state of California so wonderful, is that you have everything from snow-capped mountains this time of year to beaches that people are at. And there's a huge amount of enterprise and personal choice on how we live between those extremes, and between rural and urban. And so, and every place, as long as they have at the very foundation the health of their community at all levels as the basis, that we will be able to move forward. But we probably need the latitude to do it at just a little different levels throughout the state. And so I'd ask that you advocate for that. And then at the federal level, there was some legislation that came down that was targeted to help cities. What I've seen a lot of right now is that so much of it is targeted either on large metropolitan cities based on the 500,000 population threshold, or really driven at the county level, that the municipalities sometimes are falling through the cracks, especially ones like Grass Valley that, we're sitting at like 13,000 population. We have a service population of somewhere between 50 and 70,000 based on the people that live in Western Nevada County. But this is going to have serious impacts, just as it does for businesses And for individuals, it also has impacts on departments and cities, as well as counties, and anything that can be done to help advocate to make sure that cities remain viable as a going concern in the future would be very important.
Yes, absolutely. We've been in contact with cities and counties, and that is definitely something we're going to have to be really on moving forward with lack of revenue that's come in during this time. And I'm looking forward to be able to work on those issues specifically. So thank you for joining us today. And your website is www.gbpd.net. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Want to make sure. So I'm can follow you. Are you on social media?
We're on a couple platforms, but probably our most prevalent here based on our demographic and our followership is the best one to look at would be Facebook, and it's just facebook.com/Grass Valley Police Department. And if you're into canines, you can follow our canine units on Instagram. Both Rudiger and Kano have their own pages, and that's always fun to take a look at because who doesn't want to look at furry friends?
What breed are they?
So Rudiger is a German Shepherd, and Kano is a Belgian Malinois.
Those are amazing dogs. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we have a local in Modoc. Yes, those guys. In Modoc County, Rogue is a Malinois. Is that how you said that?
Malinois, yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always in awe when I watch one of those. They do the demonstrations, you know, they're pretty cool. So thank you again for joining us today. I hope I get to see you soon in person. Thank you everyone for tuning in and joining us, and that I hope you've learned some helpful information. Please stay safe, stay home for now, and we're all in this together. God bless you and your families. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.